Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 73 of the True North Eager Beaver Interview Project, also known as episode number 679 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, June 26th for broadcast on Friday, June 27th. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, he, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health this afternoon?
I think it's pretty good, actually.
Excellent.
My stomach's a little off, but my brain is feeling good. So I'll take that as a win. It's like, when am I ever going to have a day where everything just lines up and I have no pain and everything is working? It's never going to happen. So I'll take the wins where I can find them. And right now, I think the brain is doing good. So let's count that as a win.
Excellent. I see that we are complementarily colored today.
Yes.
Yes, very nice. I like it. By the way, before we get into anything, very, very, very important breaking news. Beep, 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 beep. Even though it is Thursday and we try and traveling, I recently have seen the first picture of the newest kit.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I saw a little picture, and he is the cutest thing. Oh my God.
I've got the breaking news. I had to find it. We'll try that again here. Breaking news.
We have a new kit.
Do you have the photo you can share?
I'm not sure if I have permission to share it.
Okay. No problem.
Yes. I forgot to ask.
That's okay. That's fine.
But I mean, public.
And you're doing that's the right thing. Until we've been given permission, we just don't.
Yes. But Mr. Oberon Benjamin Goodwin is now part of the world. I'm just welcome. I'm of course, completely fresh newborn. So, but absolutely adorable and cute and a little bundle. And it seems like mama and baby are doing fine. So, hopefully, after some rest, we'll have a Saucy back in the chat and be able to tell us a little bit about all of it. But good work, mama. And dad too. I mean,
right? Obviously.
and good work, little one, for making it out. All right. Today, kids and cubs, on the show, we have a treat for you because this is something you've been asking for in the chat. So, kids and cubs, because of a lot of stuff that's been going on in the world today, we have one of our own who happens to have the ability to bring a little light and insight into it that we cannot, a former member of the Royal Canadian Navy, a teacher, and a military historian. Kids and Cubs, you know him, you love him. Put your paws up and give a big round of applause for Mr. Hugh Culliton. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, how are you?
How are you doing? Can you actually see me?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, good. Because there's a little bit of a time delay here.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations to Saucy. Like, my goodness, we've got a new O-boat in the fleet. Because Oberons were actually the name of a class of submarine. So allow me to pipe the side.
Ooh. Ooh, we might have to adjust that.
That's definitely a Navy man right there, I'll tell you what.
Ooh, for the volume there. Oh boy. All right. How is your mental health doing today, sir?
Today, pretty darn good. I got my report cards done, which being ADHD is a bit of a tasking for me, and I really don't like that. My grade 9 class this year was a bit of a treat, but we made through the semester, and yeah, and now I'm surfing into the summer, so I'm my mental health is pretty solid right now.
Good stuff.
Also, the hot peppers are doing well too.
The hot peppers are doing well too?
Oh yeah. So I got those growing on the lawn.
Good stuff. So, Kids and Cubs, as you know, in the news lately, there's been a lot of talk about Iran and what's been going on there. And of course, we happen to have a little bit of in-house expertise. And we've been talking. And yes, my good friend, because I'm happy to say that this is my good friend, has been able to cobble together some information, has been reading up on it. Some of you have been watching his own videos on his own YouTube and, pointing us to them and saying, you need to check them out. And we have, but of course we didn't need to do that in order to invite him.
No, God.
We already knew.
He's not new to the lodge.
No. In fact, for the longest time, and my dear friend, I have to say that your record has been beaten because of our interview with Bonnie. But you were our most viewed interview up until then. The one we did for Remembrance Day in our first year together. Mm-hmm. But
Bonnie's good people. So if I'm in her company, I am very, very impressed.
Well, number one,
more dons than I ever had.
Yeah. Number 1 and number 2 happen to be people who have served.
Yeah. How ironic, huh?
There you go. Go figure.
Both veterans.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Quality. We bring the quality.
Yes, we do.
All right. Of course, as you know, we've been mentioning on the show, there's lots of stuff going on, and we've been trying to give you some tools, for media literacy and, borrowing a bit, like from Professor Timothy Snyder, who, made the point of saying, a lot of things that are going to be said in the first minutes after things in the first hours are going to end up being wrong, which has been the case. And then there's a lot of things that people are going to be saying on each side that are going to be for domestic consumption primarily, which we have seen.
Yeah.
Right? So we have, because Hugh is a military historian, he understands the military aspect of it, but can also place it in a context. Right? That's the part that we don't have. And, our knowledge of military is still somewhat limited, although we seem to do well enough. Thanks often to Mr. Brisley, because he knows more than I do. But in this case here, we're talking about military stuff of countries that are not our own, and one country that is, with whom a lot of us are a whole lot less familiar than the other. Mm-hmm. So there's more to the story, as always. And with our friend Hugh, we are going to get into it. Hugh, I was wondering at the beginning, because I want to go back a little bit, because right now we have this particular set of hostilities. But back on October 1st, 2024, there was a day where Iran had launched about 200 ballistic missiles at targets in Israel, and that there were at least 2 waves that were part of that operation, and it was called True Promise 2. And Israel retaliated at that point, and it was stated then that severe damage had been done to Iran's defense systems. Could you explain in what way and how that particular operation made Iran more vulnerable than we've known it up until recently?
Okay. You have to understand that at the time that strike went in, and like them or hate them, and I have a tremendous critique of the Iranian regime. They were actually engaged in honest diplomatic relations with a variety of states with respect to their nuclear program and defense policy going forward. This was used as a cover by the United States and Israel primarily, but they could not have conducted their initial assault without at least the strategic satellite and intelligence networks of the United States absolutely fully in the know to back them up on this. In order to do a first strike against their capability to suppress, basically to suppress the Israelis were doing their best to suppress the Iranians so they could launch attacks that would target some of their facilities. The Israelis knew that the Iranians were engaged in negotiations when they launched their strike. So in some ways, I see that as being kind of akin to it's a Pearl Harbor type of situation where you're launching a strike while diplomatic operations are ongoing. Okay, that was extremely successful because it allowed them to take out the Israelis to take out the Iranian first line of air defense networks, their S-300s, their S-400 missile systems, which were given to them, were bought from Russia, which are very effective at destroying ballistic missiles, as well as incoming munitions and ordnance from air launched. The Israeli strike was more or less an air launched assault. They've done this before. They've done this a couple of times. They've done this as a they did this as a sort of like a quiet operation where they had a pile of F-16s, Israeli F-16s, flying in a super tight formation, like think the snowbirds, in order to mimic the radar return signature on radars of an airliner in order to gain access to the Iranian airspace. This was done back many years ago, and they were able to take out some of their nuclear enrichment facilities. The next time they did this, which was in the early 2000s, the Americans used cyber weapons and basically viruses to work the centrifuges, and destroyed and killed a variety of a tremendous amount of the Iranian nuclear program. So Iran is operating in the full knowledge that these things might or might not happen, and unpredictability when you're dealing with diplomacy is really the hardest threat here. If you're going to have any sort of negotiations or relations in any sort of honest way in order to build a system, in order to build agreements and treaties, both sides have to be able to trust each other that you're not going to get sucker punched. And there's a strong track record with the United States and America in this regard that this tends to happen. I would be surprised. Were I an Iranian general, I would be highly surprised if in the weeks leading up to this attack on their 3 sites that the Americans launched with the B-2s, that they didn't penny packet their resources across the entire country and leave these facilities essentially, as to the best of their ability, as empty as they could. Were they able to get everything up? Probably not. Did they lose stuff? Yeah. Did it set back their program? Of course it has. But nowhere near to the extent
Okay,
that what
we're
the Americans
going to get
are
into
doing.
those. So, Mr. Grizzly, That's okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Grizzly, do you have an
Yeah,
answer?
well, Iran also lost an ally in Syria after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. How does that make Iran more vulnerable?
Iran is in a weakened position from a variety of factors. What happened to Bashir is an issue because they've lost a buffer state between them and the major threat they see from Israel. They also Hezbollah is weakened,
which is a good thing.
I mean, Gaza is a nightmare of genocide, and as Chris Hedges has recently noted, we're now approaching the end game in Gaza, where the final ethnic cleansing of the entire region is going to be conducted. I don't know what's going to happen with the Gazan residents, but they are no longer in any position to withstand anything Israel does. Israel is conducting daily strikes against food distribution sites, which are being essentially used as a lure to get children into a kill zone so that they can be destroyed by tank rounds. That's a documented fact. So I'm fully expecting that we'll see over the summer the border fences to Egypt, which have been.
Oh no!
Oh,
Did
no.
we lose Hugh? He froze.
Oh, no. Darn.
Sometimes this happens with technology when we have a remote guest.
To
Okay,
continue life.
Hugh, sorry, I want to cut you. I need to cut you. You froze for a bit.
Yeah. He'll be back. Okay, he's coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah.
You froze for a bit, so we missed about maybe the last minute or so.
Absolutely.
Okay, and just to let you know, because can you see us?
I can see you now.
Okay.
You're sort of hesitant and dodgy. I can see myself, which in this day and age is probably the best thing to do. But
there's a window there that says private chat, just to let you know. So in case
Down at the
anything
bottom.
happens like that, we can send you a message there, and you can check.
Down at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, I can see it now. All right.
Yeah.
I'll wear my glasses.
Yeah.
All right.
I take mine off to avoid the glare, right? Gents, though, I do have to duck out. I have to go take care of something that has just popped up that needs to be dealt with straight away.
Okay.
I will try and make it back before you guys wind everything up. Send me a text just to let me know so that if I can make it back in time, I will. If I can't, we'll figure something out. But I have to take care of something that has urgently popped up. I apologize. But sometimes life gets in the way of your plans, right?
Right.
Bowel movements are important, Paul.
Oh God.
Okay, that was pretty good. Not gonna lie. That's not what's popped up, though. I will see you later.
I'm sorry.
That's not what's popped up, though. Title of my next sex tape.
Certainly.
Okay. Jeez.
Anyways,
Even when we're talking about war,
we were
and stuff,
talking
we're
about
still naughty.
genocide.
We're still naughty. We're terrible people. Okay, sorry. So yes, you were mentioning that talking about Gaza and things there we're getting to the end
The
game.
question being, and to go back to my original point, Iran is in a weakened position, and they have been deeply and grievously hurt by what Israel has done to, and the United States have done to them. Are they out of the fight? No. Have they used any or all of their primary armaments? No. Do they have a tremendous number of asymmetric assets that they can employ? Hell yeah. We haven't seen how these fights work out. No nation like Israel, or like Iran, sorry, going up against a nation like Israel backed by the United States is going to be able to fight them toe to toe like two heavyweights duking it out. That's not the way that these fights work. When we're talking about asymmetric warfare, when we're talking about 21st century warfare, what we're going to see is the use of different assets in order to accomplish the goal. The goal here isn't force on force. The goal here is to win the war. In order to do that from an Iranian perspective, again, if I put myself in the place of an Iranian commander, number one, I am distributing my nuclear program across the entire country. I am absolutely silently and quietly as possible and secretly as possible ramping up the weapons program, because now we are seeing that no matter what we do, whether we do it diplomatically, whether we do it internationally, whether we do it openly or not, we are going to be attacked and people are going to die. The regime is not well liked in the country for a pile of solid reasons.
Right.
I mean, but that is not an us thing to deal with. This notion of regime change that we're starting to see leaking out as trial balloons in the Western media from the United States government, from Canada, from
Yep.
which, and I have to say I have some serious reservations with Carney about some of his statements with respect to Iranian policy and our position on this, because from the global South, if we look at it from that perspective and put ourselves in their shoes, Iran is obviously the aggrieved party. They have been attacked without any provocation, without any cause, by countries that are reckless and are known to do these provocations. So they've got a fair amount of political support in the rest of the world. Not NATO, of course, not the United States, of course, not Canada, of course, but the rest of the world is looking at them and saying, yeah, you guys got a point. What happens next? So the nuclear program, unless you're a lunatic, is going to be ramped up. Since 2003, the Iranian government has been honorably, as according to United States intelligence estimates that they were releasing up until this was a midnight hammer. Jesus. But when this operation happened, the United States intelligence estimates were saying, look, yeah, they're over enriching some of their materials. I think they're at about maybe 60 to 80% over what you need for a civilian nuclear operation. So great, maybe they're doing that, but you're still way down the road from a nuclear grade material enough to make a bomb. On top of that, now the goalpost is changing to regime change, so targeting the entire government, and no nukes ever for any purpose. And
Yep.
so we've got a situation where the asks are being shifted down the road. I don't know how that's going to play out in Iran, except to say that Iran still considers that they are in fact at war. It doesn't matter if it's a 12-day war from Trump and what he wants to think.
Okay.
I'll stop talking and let you ask questions.
All right. So when we're looking at the weakening of the air defense, when we're looking at losing an ally in Assad, when we're looking at the damage inflicted on Hezbollah, the damage inflicted on the Houthis, the fact
And
that
Yemen.
in Yemen, the fact that Hamas has its hands full and then some, all of this, provides extra motivation for Iran to get back to the negotiating table for this round of
course it is.
talks, even though the fact that Trump ripped up the deal was kind of a demotivation. But, the situation on the ground changes. And it seems that they were in this process, but it also seems that because the deal had not been reached, but they were about to enter a final phase of negotiations. And this final phase appears to be a phase, if we're hearing, if the version that we are hearing, that's for us to consume as an audience, that it wasn't particularly proactive in terms of wanting to enter into this final phase. So it would seem to me, if this is indeed true in your assessment, that Iran sort of saw some type of potential advantage in dragging the heels a little bit. If that's the case, what in your estimation was the strategic advantage for them in doing that they thought that they would have had?
Right. A lot of stuff in there. Okay. If we look at this from a geopolitical perspective, the United States and Israel have been saying for a very long time that Iran is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, away from a nuclear program, like going back 30 years.
Yeah.
So they have to prove a very hard case if we're looking at this in those terms. All Iran has to do is survive in order to gain their strategic objectives. If I were in the position of Iran right now, what I would be doing is saying, "Hey, bro, you just smoked us. Yeah, you took everything out. We don't got nothing left. Let's talk." And I would be going into the negotiation from that perspective, in order to feel out the West to see what their options are. I fundamentally don't think that going into this, United States really, or Israel really understood what the end state, what they wanted as an end state. When you engage in military kinetic operations, it's very, very important to understand what the stop lines are as much as what the start lines are, in order to ensure that you're meeting the objectives of the mission. Otherwise, you get something called mission creep. This
Right.
is what destroyed the United States in Vietnam, Korea even, uh, Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, any of these engagements, if you don't know what you're getting into, if you don't know what you want at the end state and you're reacting, this becomes very unpredictable and very dangerous. Iran just wants, one, the government is, in terms of geopolitics, a rational actor. So they want to regime stability and survival, and they want to look after their people, and however that looks like. And they don't want to be engaged in a nuclear war or in an invasion. So that's their goals. What does Israel want out of this? They're already fighting on about 3 different fronts.
Right.
They're fighting in Syria. They're fighting Yemen. They're fighting in Lebanon, and as well as the
Gaza.
horror show that is Gaza. So they are already maxed out on their ability. The United States, likewise, is dealing with tremendous amounts of internal strife and chaos, self-induced, that they are trying to manage and everything. The Trump administration lives in the eternal now, if you want to put it that way. They're not looking down the road. They are reactive to absolutely everything, which means that they are able to be guided by various powers into doing things that are not really in their needs.
Yep.
Okay, going back to this attack here, Israel launched their original aggression here 12, 15 days ago, about half a month ago, based on the understanding that they would gain the element of surprise right off the bat, because of the ground rules that they had, and that they knew America would be the big boy in their corner who would be able to backstop their play, because there's nothing except nuclear in the Israeli arsenal that can absolutely take out any of these facilities. Indeed, and if you want to get into the physics of it, these bunker busters, which are incredibly powerful weapons, are not capable of doing the job as well as everybody is trying to gin it up as being done.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, okay. Well, let's look at Fodor, because that's the major site where they had their centrifuges. Okay, you need a centrifuge is basically just like what you had in a high school lab, right? It's a thing that spins around in order to separate heavier material from lighter material.
Right.
The ones that you need in order to separate uranium-238 from uranium-235 in order to make fissile quality material that you can use to machine into the core of a bomb, requires some very, very high-tech equipment. Like we're talking like 10 million RPM and stuff like I mean, I'm not a nuclear scientist, so I'm not going into that. But okay, so what do? You build it under a mountain. Cheyenne Mountain. Everybody's seen Stargate SG-1. That's Cheyenne Mountain. It is literally under a mountain. These mountains, the overhang on top of the bunker in Iran that the Americans struck, was approximately 900 meters of dolomite, granite, and limestone. These are substances. These are natural materials with different layers between them, which have different dissipation rates of energy and all these things. That's on top of the bunker. So even before you get to the bunker, you have to get through this massive structure that is capable of resisting 30, 100,000 psi of pressure, of overpressure. And it backfills when, like, these things go in and it cracks off and it goes boom and it fills back in. Now you got a layer of cushioning on top of whatever's below it. On top of that, nobody in the United States, and I cite Ted Cruz with his that massive lunacy with Tucker Carlson. My God, it's like watching two people you absolutely despise beating the crap out of each other at a bar.
Listen, there was more drama there than a bunch of drag queens at a shoe sale at a closing store clearance, I tell you.
I know. I mean, they're about like 2 seconds away from slapping each other. But but okay, but both of them, like, okay, Tucker and maybe broken clocks, whatever, but holy crap, I'm actually now agreeing with Tucker Carlson, said the right question. What do you know about Iran? What do you know about this country? What do you know about this structure? And the answers that he was getting from a guy on the intelligence committee and who was involved in this policy terrified me, because that means they have no freaking idea what actually is going on down there. All right, so you get through 800 meters, almost a kilometer of various types of rock, and let's just out of absolute best case scenario, you punch one down, great. You punch another one down, great. Punch another one down, great. These bombs, 30,000-pound bombs, are designed to go through. They got cobalt metal frames and everything, and they're heavy as hell. They're designed to go down maybe about 500, 600 meters through concrete. Remember that all the data that they're going off of, that this was done properly, is based on their test data, which is best case laboratory conditions. Underneath that, now we've got the other aspect. One of the best countries on the planet, one of the leading countries on Earth in highly resilient, absolutely best concrete ever possibly made, and we're talking serious high-tech stuff, is Iran. They know how to build stuff. Carbon fiber, Kevlar fiber reinforced, fiberglass, along with rebar. These things are capable, like the type of concrete that they're making these bunkers out of, is capable of resisting at least 50,000 pounds overpressure, PSI overpressure. On top of that, you build in slope defense systems where you've got beams on top of that are spaced out so that they absorb the shock like a ship's armored design. In my video, I cited Drachenfels. He's a British naval architect. His work on how ships defeat incoming high velocity armor piercing rounds or torpedoes. It's the same thing here. It's a matter of absorbing the energy and dissipating the energy so it doesn't crush the structure. The concrete that these bunkers are made out of is resilient not just to compression, which all concrete is very, very good for. It's basically it's man-made or human-made limestone. It's a type of material, but it's very solid. Its weakness historically has been in tension. When you got that up and down thing, that's what cracks it up. That's what in earthquakes causes problems. This stuff is awesome for that. This stuff is designed to deal with like magnitude 9 earthquakes. So and let's assume that some of these things punched through, even through all this stuff, and they actually did a boom inside. Going back to your original point that we were talking about earlier, the Trump administration telegraphed their intentions to the Iranians well before the attack went in, giving them enough time to do a lot of, as we saw on the overhead images that are public source. And we don't have all the information. So this is all just based on open source information that everybody and their dog can get. They were able to line up a whole pile of trucks, at least. That's what we saw. And we're able to backfill using big, huge scoopers, the entrances. So that provides additional resilience to detonations nearby. Okay, let's assume that they hit this target, and let's assume that they are going to continue to believe that they absolutely destroyed it. Where's the uranium?
Exactly. If you gave time to telegraph enough for them to move stuff in front of the entrances, you gave time enough to move the uranium.
Now, going back to my original point earlier on about asymmetric warfare, going back in the mindset of an Iranian general, what are my worst case options? What can I do? What are my tools at my disposal? Okay, I got the Iranian Republican Guard who can launch commando raids against a lot of American bases. If you ever look, like anybody who's out there, Google a map of the American bases that are ringing Iran. You'll see how close they actually are to Iran. Because they're surrounding them for reasons. I mean, that's the Anaconda strategy. It goes back to the American Civil War. But they've got these bases all around them. They're very close, so they're within commando raid. So maybe you can attract those. Iran, when the 6 detonations went off, or the 12 detonations, whatever, they sent an equal number, and they telegraphed their intentions to the Americans, saying, "Hey, you got 12 rounds incoming, so brace yourselves." And the Americans were able to defeat it, of course, because they were designed to defeat it. Because the Iranians were just saying, look, you hit us, we have to hit back. We have to respond in kind. All right, that's one option. Let's say this goes absolutely worst case, and Trump and Netanyahu and everybody decides to say, we're all in on regime change. How are we going to take out the regime? Well, we're going to bomb the crap out of them and force the population to overthrow the government. I taught graduate courses in air power theory, going back to the very beginning, like for the military, going back to the very beginning of air power in the 20th century. Never in the history of air power, air doctrine, has a country ever been toppled solely by a bomber campaign or a strategic offensive. During the 1920s and 30s, the British tried to police their empire by air because they thought it would be cheaper, dropping bombs out the sides of Hawker Harts rather than having troops on the ground. Yeah, it's cheaper, but it doesn't work, because the moment the airplane's gone, unless you have got boots on the ground, you do not control the territory. So doing regime change like this just means you're going to kill a lot of civilians. Now, as an Iranian, what am I going to do to defend against this? The Israelis have what is called I think they refer to it as the Samson option, which is basically, if we are being crushed by other forces, because they've got nuclear tirade, just like the Americans and the British and French do, and Russians and Chinese, where you've got ship-borne, like submarine-borne nuclear missiles. You have got land-based hardened nuclear missiles, as well as air-launched nuclear missile systems. So you can retaliate. So no matter what happens to you, you can always fight back. That's the nature of a deterrent. That's how the MAD doctrine was established in the 1950s and 60s. Mutually assured destruction. If you attack us, you know that we have the ability to attack you. We don't have that here because Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. I would say, well, all right. I would say I'm about 90% confident they don't have nuclear weapons. They have the material to do a lot of things with the stuff they have, though. Dirty bombs. Do you know what that is? Yeah. All they have to do, and this is the beauty of it, like a dirty bomb like this as a delivery system, all they have to do is pack a pile of highly enriched uranium around a warhead and chuck it in one of their intermediate range missiles, which, as we have seen, are effective in reaching Israeli territory. All they have to do is pack enough material in that, and they can saturate an Israeli city, and thus denied access for the next 100 years. They can do the same thing to oil fields. They can do the same thing to American bases. On top of that, the Strait of Hormuz, where a lot of oil for the world flows through. Now, as anybody who's taken first aid knows, you don't have to cut off all blood flow or all oxygen in order to kill an organism. All you have to do is choke off enough. If I were Iranian, I would have years ago, like decades ago, have across the entire Strait of Hormuz, especially the major shipping channels, which are only about 7 miles across, planted very highly camouflaged, they look like rocks, on the bottom, torpedo or mine launch facilities that are hardwired into the shore with lots of backups and everything. All Iran has to, and they don't even need that. All they have to do is say, look, we have mined this. Therefore, you now have to treat it as being mined. And we are now going to attack any ship that is related to the United States that's coming through here. And then they've also got the option of not ticking off the Chinese, who they do a heck of a lot of oil business with, by saying, you guys are cool, because the way that these munitions work, you can actually track individual ships, not just types of ships, but individual ships. You can tell the difference very easily on sonar between, say, the Theodore Roosevelt and a Nimitz and Jerry Ford. They have different harmonic signatures that are easy to track. So you can actually target your munitions for very specific ships from various different countries. So Iran is not like they've got a weak hand in some ways, but they also, like, if the United States and Israel keep going with this, and I hope they don't, because I'm looking at what's happening diplomatically, and it seems to me like this is being used more as a gesture to distract people from what's happening in the United States.
Okay. All right. So Iran not proactively going into that final phase appears now to have been some type of miscalculation, because, as you mentioned earlier in one of your responses, when somebody is living in the immediacy of now, it becomes a little easier to lead them by the nose. It would seem that in this case, Iran miscalculated Netanyahu's ability to persuade Trump to essentially swallow himself whole, because he ran on being the Nor's president. Would you assume that was a miscalculation, or?
I'm not going to assume that Iran is like overthinking this, and I don't mean to presume that Iran has all the cards and has like 5D chess level understanding of what's happening here, because they are as reactive to this as
but my
everybody
question
else
is, did they
got
miss
pulled into this? They got pulled into this mess. They got caught with their pants down, and now they're reacting to it.
But my
as
question
well.
is, did they? You mentioned that Iran, for all the bad things that are said about it, is still a rational actor. Did they assume, perhaps in this case, if they were taking their time, that Trump was going to be a lot more rational than he ended up being?
Yes, I think their hope was that by engaging in negotiations, by continuing discussion and dialogue, they would be able to reach some sort of an agreement. No country wants bombs raining down on it, and they don't want their people upset, because upset people cause problems at home. So I'm very confident that they had high hopes that, because they were in discussion with the United States, with the international community, with even with Israel, about the nuclear issue especially, that they might be able to drag this out. I mean, talk as is often said by Winston Churchill, or was quoted by Winston Churchill, beats jaw beats
Indeed.
war. The idea that as long as we're talking, we can actually figure something out. I think that was where they were at.
So,
in the ramification, something that really concerns me about this is the message that this sends to the international community.
yeah, we can.
Around the
My next
world, secondary powers are now looking at this very, very clearly and very carefully, and everybody is taking very careful notes. The United States is not trustworthy. They will not abide by any of their negotiations or treaties that they agree to. Where does that leave us? What are our options? I mean, if you want to ensure proliferation, you add a vast amount of instability to the international
all right,
system.
so I got a question about that, because with the first round of the most recent set of hostilities, the United States had only helped Israel intercept retaliation from Iran. Israel attacked first. Iran retaliated. The U.S. was like helping take out some of the things that were flying along with the Iron Dome. But in the second round, the United States took on an aggressor role. So when that happened, geopolitically, what changed?
Well, in the United States, they don't really understand this, but Iran thinks that the United States actually attacked them. The United States thinks that they, according to their statements, thinks that they attacked a couple of facilities in the desert. If you want to go by that line of logic, I would ask you to consider that how would America respond if, say, China were to maybe take out Oak Ridge, Tennessee, or Los Alamos? It would be seen as being an aggressive act.
Okay.
So the United States is functionally in a situation where they're in it, they're somewhat at war with a country that doesn't really want to be at war. So if they back down, I'm quite confident that Iran will step back from the brink. My concern is that this is further destabilizing and creating the ground conditions for future aggression, where the confusion is going to be vastly greater in a variety of different theaters. Okay. There are some notions, like I think Medvedev was discussing this on Twitter a couple of days ago, that not Russia, but some country might loan Iran nuclear deterrence while they rebuild their defenses. And I was reminded actually of a thought that came to me back when we were dealing with Trump directly, with the 51st state stuff, that maybe we should be asking France or Britain to score us a couple of nukes there just for this interim, just to make sure everybody stays honest. But
all right,
now, actually, and also, here's another issue, another layer of confusion that adds to this, and chaos that gets added to this. Let's say, because we do know that from the Cold War time, there are still a few of those suitcase KGB bombs out there. Whether they're active or not, I don't know. I doubt they are. Let's say there are people out there with fissile material. There are people out there who can, like substate actors, that can do bombs. Now, you got the perfect cover here. Let's say you put something in a sea can, put it in Long Beach or New York or Florida or Haifa or someplace else around the world, point fingers at Iran and say, look what they did. You told us they were 2 weeks away from this, so now we're seeing that they're instability with nukes is always bad.
Any other nation for any other interest that has nothing to do with this whatsoever. It's just an opportunity that's there now.
Another nation that hates all countries equally. I mean, you can this isn't a zero-sum game. Just because you could criticize the United States or Israel doesn't mean that you like Iran. Like the simplistic thought and reasoning that I'm seeing in a lot of the mainstream, like the American media especially, is stunning. Like the lack of depth of understanding of this is off the charts and dangerous, because it's giving people a false understanding of what actually is happening and what the dangers are.
So when this last wave happened, Trump was the first to rush out, declare the mission an incredible success, stating that the nuclear program had been completely obliterated. I was skeptical on the show. Turns out was wise to be, because the International Atomic Energy Agency and later on even some Israel-based sources claimed that was not necessarily the case. Now, you've mentioned some things with regard, to mountains and various structure and whatnot, but these are things that not necessarily the average person would know. Was there anything really just so blatantly obvious to let one know that he was just making stuff up? Like,
from a military perspective and from like an intelligence perspective, to be able to say within hours of a strike like this that it was an absolute perfect success, that reeks of
There you go.
bullshit. That tells you right off the bat that they are not operating on grounds of data and evidence. They're operating on grounds of happy feels and political
So for
messaging.
domestic consumption here.
In order to do a bomb damage assessment of a facility like this requires feet on the ground to be able to look at and assess what actually happened inside the
Right.
bunker. Smoking holes in the desert, great. Maybe you hit something, maybe you didn't. In order to crush a tunnel in a facility like this, you have to have an ordnance like the 57 hit within 20 to 40 meters of the actual tunnel. Do you know where the tunnels are? No, they don't. They've got 78 maximum % understanding of what the actual structure under that mountain looks like in order to figure out their targeting. I'm quite confident that they did their best to do it, but you cannot be definite about this. So you drop ordnance on this target. Great. When I was talking about the structures, what I mean is, and anybody who's ever shot bullets can tell you, different hardness of structures will cause a deflection in where the bullet goes. You don't need very much. All you need is a super hard vein of dolomite or something, or granite that deflects that round off a little bit, and it's outside the danger zone. You literally cannot tell from satellites or from overhead or from the best intelligence possible from space or the sky or what actually happened unless you actually got people going under there to actually survey the bomb damage. So the bomb damage assessment has not been carried
Normally
out.
that would be the IAEA that does that, right? Normally that would be the IAEA that goes there and does that?
Well, the IAEA has been since 2003 maintaining an eyes on and inspections of fully open inspections of Iran. They know exactly what is in there. They know exactly what was there, but they have not. I would be very surprised if, given that Iran is now getting out of the IAEA, that they're actually allowing people on the ground, especially in a given such a strategically difficult position right now.
Okay. And I could probably guess that in that case, if like we said, Iran State TV was just saying, no, they just destroyed a couple of entrances and stuff like that.
Were I Iran, I'd be saying, no, you smoked it all, guys. You thumbs up, boys. The USAF just did a really great job.
But that's probably more for domestic consumption there too, then, right?
Yeah.
We're still strong.
Yeah.
And since the IAEA can't confirm or deny at the moment, it wouldn't be in their interest to let them in to go check.
I'm assuming, based on what, and I'm not a nuclear engineer by any stretch, but I'm just a history teacher in Peterborough. But from what I've seen, I would estimate that this might have set their program back 6-12 months tops. If they and they weren't, and as far as their program goes, I'm not saying that they were actually engaged, because we've got absolute credible information from the American intelligence system that they were not engaged in building a bomb since 2003. They were actually obeying their treaties. Now they are regretting that decision. I'm quite confident.
So you've gotten to where I was going next, because there's new verbiage that has started to be used to assess the impact of the attack. Rather than obliterated, we're talking about damaged and disrupted. And I think with Prime Minister Carney was saying the same thing, that he thought it might be about like 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half tops. So you believe that's probably a more fair and accurate assessment then? Okay.
Yes. I mean, in the West, we seem to have this notion that anybody who is of dusky hue is somewhat stupid and doesn't understand geopolitics and doesn't understand strategy. I mean, dear goodness, the Secretary of Defense has Diaz Vault on his frigging bicep, relating back to when the Saracens kicked the ass of the Christians who came down there to launch a whole pile of redneck whoop ass on them. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of jingoism and racism and that absolutely colors and occludes the ability to perceive honestly and accurately what is actually happening. I mean, as Death, his statements this morning are reek of, well, probably reek of vodka too, but they reek of that. The notion that you know, like, we're perfect, everybody else is wrong, and USA. I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, oh, the cringe I got when I was driving home from the school. It was good that I'm driving along the river road there by the Otonabee River, where I've got swans and birds and stuff to calm me down, because I wanted to get out of the car and scream.
Okay. So, yeah, I can imagine that. After the initial attack happened, you had Donald Trump, there shouldn't be no retaliation, don't you dare, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, Iran threw had some retaliation at a military base in Qatar. And then everybody was like, oh my God, Article 5 and all that kind of stuff. And we explained that, no, of course, no, because those are only an attacks based on North America and in Europe. But why is it that Iran could not retaliate in some form, and why is it that they would have telegraphed to Qatar that it was coming, and according to the United States, although I'm not sure if Iran has said it themselves, telegraphed it to the United States?
They threaded that needle to the best of their ability. And something, if we go back to the beginning of this mess, when with the first strikes there a few weeks ago, what we've noticed is, and going back even before this to the previous missile launches after the United States and Israel targeted some Iranians, higher powers directly and deliberately. What we see is that they are following the principle of proportionality of response. I mean, I hate to say this, because like I don't much care for the Iranian regime at all, but they have been very, very deliberate in the way that they do it. Like, going back to McNamara and the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he's talking about proportionality as being a form of diplomatic language, that's exactly what we saw here. We saw, if you attack us, we have to retaliate in kind, but we're not escalating. They were hurt by their first attack and they lost a lot of launchers, but as we saw, they could certainly put out hell of a lot more missiles than they actually did in those first few waves. Like, they could have absolutely flooded the zone. They figured out the tactics which beat the fixed defenses of Iron Dome. Iron Dome is like anything throughout military history. It is a fixed defensive position. Think the Maginot Line. Once you know where it is and you've surveyed what it can do and what the design requirements are, you can figure out ways of defeating it. Iran has that. They understand that. I mean, any defensive system like that. That's why the Golden Dome is absolutely insanely ludicrous. And if we go anywhere near that, I'm going to be chaining myself to the steps of the friggin' House of Parliament in protest. But anyways, that's another story. They were maintaining this whole proportionality throughout this entire process. I hate to say it, but Iran are being the adults in the room, and that gives me hope, because that means that we can, as long as you got an adult in the room, you can deal with the toddlers who are behaving recklessly.
So in his interview,
what are American
pardon?
Next steps? What are American next steps? That's going to be the question.
Okay.
What they do next will be based on how they are perceived domestically and what the political and Trump's psychological state, whatever he decides is paramount in the United States, whoever he talks to last.
And we probably will get into that. I think I have something on that later. So, but on the issue of proportionality, so I'm thinking back to the Prime Minister's interview with Christian Amanpour, when he said the recent Iranian action, which was the launching missiles in Qatar, as you know, was consistent with leading up to actual de-escalation, and also said, we never welcome, obviously, hostilities and reactions, but it was proportionate, it was de-escalation, it appears to have been previewed. You would see that as a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So while Trump is still insisting that the program has been obliterated, other assessments would indicate that given Trump so telegraphed the fact that the attack was going to happen, and the Iranians had time to move most, if not all, of the currently enriched uranium to another location, Trump denies that by saying it would be impossible to do, but other assessments are saying that the total amount of uranium enriched would essentially be the size of a volleyball. And thus it would be easy to do, especially if it was broken up into several smaller pieces. To you, which assessment is the more plausible?
The Iranians, well, the idea that the Iranians were able to get most of their fissile material out. We don't know how much they got out. We don't know what they did with it. Being sane, they would have penny packeted it in a variety of sites across the country in order to ensure redundancy. You don't need a lot of fissile material if it's weapons grade. If it's ginned up to full weapons grade, you don't need much more than a volleyball size in order to make a munition. Now, let's understand. This is all predicated on the American and Israeli hypothesis that the moment that they have a bomb ready to go, they're going to launch and they're going to try to take out Tel Aviv or Washington or someplace. That's not how nuclear weapons work. That's not how deterrence work. There's no frigging way in the universe that Iran, knowing that Israel is a nuclear power, knowing that the United States can turn the entire gosh darn country into a glass mirror, is going to launch a nuke at any of these countries. The nuclear arms are not. It's weird. Like it's like we're getting in Dr. Strangelove territory here with these guys, but it's getting into this notion that nuclear weapons are not an offensive weapon. They are in fact a defense.
We have our friend who is frozen for a little here. So while we hope that he comes back to us soon. Whoa, interesting today. But hey, that's what connections are like. Sometimes they don't actually go through and don't stay stable. Let's see if we can bring our friend back here. There we go. Hello, good sir.
Hi.
There you go.
I'm back. Yeah, I guess I lost me. Anyways, so like the whole idea of nuclear arms deterrence theory is based on the notion that the enemy knows that you can hurt them, therefore everybody's cool. It's like the guys in the bar and everybody's got a gun, so nobody's going to pull it, hopefully, unless you got lunatics, and that becomes a problem. But the the American and the Israeli arguments were more designed for domestic consumption in order to gain political points within their countries than it ever was to actually deal with the actual strategic threat that is out there.
Okay. You were talking earlier about things like dirty bombs and stuff like that, because there's other armchair quarterbacks that I'm seeing out there saying that it doesn't matter if the enriched uranium was located or not, because it's not powerful enough to do any damage. However, I've heard other assessments that say that uranium enriched by even 20%, if used, could create some problems, even if overall it would be less effective than optimally enriched uranium. And the more it is enriched, the more damage it could do. What's your take on that?
With radiological material, you don't need a fission or a fusion explosion in order to do a lot of long-term harm and damage. Let's think back to landmines. Landmines offer in some ways a similar problem. Once you've deployed landmines, you don't really know where they are, and they can exist and linger for about 100 years into the future. So that means it's an area denial weapon. It allows you to deny use of an area of land to your adversary. With fissile material, let's say a missile is an intermediate. I think I lost this again.
Oh, gotcha. You're still with us.
Okay, all right. A fissile material on a missile doesn't have to go boom in order to contaminate a large area. One intermediate range ballistic missile with about 300 pounds of dust, uranium, highly enriched uranium dust on it, showering down over Tel Aviv, means Tel Aviv is essentially uninhabitable for the next 100-odd years or so, or until you do a tremendous amount of expensive cleanup. Think back to what happens with nuclear reactor sites like Chernobyl. That's where, like, but we're talking like no sane nation is going to do that unless they are pushed into a corner and they see no outcome. But that's always going to be a final option. You don't need a nuclear bomb in order to do nuclear damage.
Okay. So let's say that they had some uranium that was only 50% enriched, and they were. What could they do with that? What type of damage could that inflict?
You could irradiate you could radiate water supplies. You can radiate cities. You can hit target population centers. The missile doesn't even have to land and detonate on its own. An interceptor taking it out over the city will do the same. Will do the same spread. In fact, the higher in the atmosphere, the more distance that stuff will dissipate into. And then you're looking at radiological injuries to the population for the next 50 to 100 years.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Or
those are so basically everybody that's saying they haven't fully enriched it, you don't have to worry. So basically everybody's saying, "Oh, it's bullshit. You don't need to worry about that." It's like that's just pure BS. A lot of damage could be done.
Or to do it sneaky like, you put it into a sea container, smack a UPS sticker on the side of the sea container, filled with enough shielding that it will not trip any sort of radiological sensors at any port on the world, and you ship it around the world, packed with some high explosives, and then you detonate it in some place like, I don't know, Long Beach, at the major shipping port facility. There you basically destroy the ability of the United States to take 1/3 of their international trade in and out of the country.
Yeah. Okay. If the kids saw me giggling a little earlier when Kid Hugh was saying something, it's just he said "fissile on a missile," and I couldn't stop.
Oh, did I actually say that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's new "fissile on a missile." I'm all of 6. I'm sorry. Sometimes. Okay. So there could be some. We're clearly far from obliterated, and we're clearly far from there's no threat whatsoever here.
Yeah.
And we got it all and all of that kind of stuff. That kind of the big broad statements that Trump's been making. As you mentioned earlier, there has been some talk of regime change, whether it is foreign imposed or whether it is led by the Iranian people just by taking advantage of a situation. But I'm seeing lots of commentary like just do the regime change and that'll be happening, and everything will be fine. But there's this little thing called the Revolutionary Guard there, which is like really well financed and has a lot of power. So wouldn't it be more likely in the case of regime change attempt that the Revolutionary Guard would just step in and fill the void?
This is the other thing. The moment you start doing kinetic operations for regime change or for warfare, you lose control of the narrative. You lose control of what can possibly happen. The Iranian, like a Republican Guard, is not just a military formation or a religious formation. It is functionally, it's not the best parallel, but think how, during the Second World War, the Schutzstaffel in Nazi Germany controlled industry, controlled the missile programs, controlled a whole pile of industrial resources, as well as being involved in the military, being involved in the government. That's kind of more like the Iranian National Guard. I'm not comparing them to the SS in that way, but just like they are. Think of a system that is functionally 1/4 of the entire Russian or the entire Iranian domestic political structure and industry and everything. They are a big thing in Iran,
Okay.
and they understand how this is played. When you engage in regime change, that's a roll of the dice. Once you've toppled a regime, nature abhors a vacuum. You might get good, you might get bad. Now, from the United States perspective, historically, going back the last 40 odd years, they seem pretty damn okay with failed state status for a lot of former adversaries. Look at Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Serbia, like any state that they have decided they don't really like, and they don't want to go to the money and expense and trouble of controlling. They turn it into an open air slave market where people are being raped in the streets, and children are being sold into slavery, because having a failed state means that they're not going to be a threat to you because they're too busy being horrible to each other. So they we're taking off our morality hat here, and we're putting that aside when we're looking at these things and thinking about it from a very much of a pathological perspective. But that's how politics is played. So the United States, I'm thinking in policy circles, you're going to get a lot of guys at the mid levels and the upper levels who are experts in Persia and Iran and the Middle East, who understand the dynamics of the region, probably speak Farsi and Arabic, understand the people there, know the people there, feel responsible, which gets into another problem because they don't like us much once we go native and we start to empathize with the people that we're supposed to be manipulating. But you're going to have a lot of people in the American intelligence community who are still left, who knows actually now, who are thinking about this stuff. We're saying, look, guys, you don't want to do this. If you take out the Ayatollah, great. The Americans despise that because they, like, you and I are old enough. I don't know about you, but I remember the Iranian Revolution. Friends of my father were pilots in the Iranian Air Force and moved to Canada and became airline pilots, and I'm friends with their children. To say that the Ayatollah is horrible and the Shah was great and wonderful, which seems to be Poilievre's messaging and a lot of the right-wing conservative messaging in Canada, completely negates the historical evil that was done in Iran under the Shah. Yay, women didn't have masks on under the Shah. Guess what? They don't now. You can walk around the streets of Tehran without any sort of face coverings. Yes, it is an Islamic republic, but it is nowhere near as lethally anti or misogynistic, perhaps. And I think there's a good argument you could make for that, as say the United States is with respect to their abortion rights. So there are no like. Going back to that notion, this isn't a zero-sum game here. They're good and bad on all sides here. We have to figure out the best way forward.
Okay.
Eloquent here.
Yeah, that's very nice. It's really very well put. Moving a little bit to the sort of globally all over the whole region. As obviously terrible as the Iranian regime is, when you consider the entire region, many people, particularly with what's going on in Gaza, have the assessment that Netanyahu himself is and has been for some time probably the single biggest obstacle to any kind of peace in the area. If I was to say that as a statement, what would be your assessment of that?
In another time, Netanyahu would be standing at Nuremberg and waiting to be hung for war crimes. This man is a criminal. He has, over his career, he has done nothing good for the world. He has courted the worst, most malevolent and cancerous elements in his society and has ginned them and used them to loft himself to power. He's engaged with the génocidaires that have have conducted one of the most obscene genocides since the Holocaust. Like and more to the point, he's not doing this for any even philosophical reason. He's doing this simply to keep his ass out of jail. I have limited respect for Netanyahu. I have limited respect for his ability to maintain stability. He has never met a deal or a treaty or an agreement in the region that he hasn't ripped up or undercut. He is not trustworthy. No actors in the region trust him. Very few people in Israel. And Israel's got a tremendous amount of right-wing bigotry and evil that it has to come to terms with, and it will have to come to terms with this eventually. I mean, nobody can act with this amount of poison and not have long-term consequences to the entire character of your country. Netanyahu is definitely, with respect to the Middle East, is functionally probably the most dangerous party in my personal perspective. And I mean, it's me talking, but in my perspective, from what I've seen over the last 30 years, he is functionally untrustworthy.
Oh, great. So now Iran has to deal with Netanyahu and Trump, who are both functionally untrustworthy.
And Netanyahu, though, has the advantage over Trump of being smart. Trump is venal. He's cunning. Don't underestimate his political cunning and his skills and his ability to manipulate his base. But he is very much living in the eternal now and will be led by anybody who he sees is buttering him up or is meeting his needs right now. And as we've seen, I mean, Netanyahu has well, he's I think he's Jared's father-in-law.
Yeah.
I think. Anyways, he's related, like their familial connections there. So he's gotten ins with these guys. I mean, look at how well Trump's been played by Putin. I mean, Putin, let's remember, is a KGB officer who was trained in how to handle agents and how to handle assets. So it's whether Trump is on the take, as it were, from Russia is irrelevant. He is so obscenely easy to be played that we're seeing the nadir of American diplomacy.
Oh, it sounds like there's a bird fight going on.
My crows. Sorry about
that.
That's
okay. All right.
They're agreeing with me.
Exactly. Yes, enthusiastically. Is there any other historical or military context that hasn't got a lot of news, of which people should really, really be aware to understand what's going on?
I've been thinking about this because, like, my way of historical thinking, I try to look at historical parallels for what's going on now versus things that have happened in the past, and yeah, it's not good. I look and I like this summer so far smacks of the writings and the diaries and the reminiscences of people that I've known and read who lived through the summer of 1914 in Canada, where everybody's just, the summer's coming, things are bad overseas, but we're just doing our best. We're going to get through everything, and people are just looking forward to the harvest, and nobody's really understanding what is actually happening and how that's going to affect us over the next little while. I look at that. Now I look down south of the border. Part of me, if you're a movie fan, you remember that movie that came out a couple of years ago, Civil War? This reeks of the backstory to the Civil War. Like this is what happened before we see the action in that movie. In addition, I also look at the hubris and everything. This spring I went back and I've cracked the spine on my 6-volume Gibbon's history, the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and I've been reading through that, and I am absolutely stunned at how absolutely consistent the narrative has been through time. Like this is a story that is well told. What's happening now has happened before, will happen again. How we get through this, I'm not entirely sure. From a Canadian perspective, we need to fundamentally understand certain things. One of which is the currents that are happening in the United States with respect to fascism and racism and bigotry, as anybody who has paid attention to what's happening in Alberta can attest, are absolutely here across our entire country. It's not just Alberta; it's everywhere. So we've got similar issues that we need to lock that crap down, and we need to figure out how to deal with that domestically so that we can meet the world with a united front. I look at our alliance systems. Canada has always been an alliance country. Our interests are always best served when we are in agreement with and cooperating with other powers more or less equal to ourselves, or sometimes greater, sometimes lesser, but certainly with a communal approach to national defense. That's where we have a moral prerogative and authority and gravitas that people do respond to and do listen to globally. As long as we don't squander that, we've got a chance to punch outside our weight diplomatically, and to hopefully modify and guide what happens next.
Okay. Since we're talking about what happens next, what do you think as being the likely potential next moves from both the Iranian and Israel U.S. sides?
Israel's hurting. They got hit, and they were not expecting that they would get hit as much as they did. They are going to be reeling. They're going to be very angry because they're not used to people having the temerity to actually punch back. So I'm expecting to see them go harder at the States with Gaza and the full closeout and shutdown of Gaza and the elimination of Palestine. The United States is lost in their own chaos. I mean, we're seeing political violence across the United States. We're seeing soldiers and Marines, anyways, deployed into the streets. We're seeing lunatic ice agents. I'm shocked that nobody has done Second Amendment stuff with these masked lunatics in Walmart uniforms, like Walmart grade,
Right.
like bought uniforms that they're pretending to be ICE. I'm actually surprised nobody has cleared leather and fired back at these people yet. So the potential this summer for violence in the United States, like mass civil violence, is fairly significant. Plus the fact that the American government is desperate. We're dealing with a drowning administration. They're underwater in literally every metric you could possibly consider, from their economic policy to their military policy to their domestic policy. So they are looking for any lever that they can use in order to flip the script. I'm fully expecting not fully expecting, that's a bit of an overstatement. I would say that there's a very strong possibility that they will go hard, militaristic, and deploy military forces across the United States this summer and go repressive in some way. I mean, we're already seeing that with respect to passports and people coming into the country, where you have to give up all your social media. Yeah, I'm going to go to the United States this summer.
Right.
Ha. Like anybody with a brain who's been commenting publicly about this has to be scared, because the goal is now fear and control. When authoritarian and authoritarian light regimes get worried, they go down hard, and they double down on it, and they will go down hard on it. And that means that we're going to see a massive erosion of civil rights. What does that mean for Europe? I think we're going to see over the next few months a further alienation of the United States from international relationships. Maybe membership in the UN might not be outside the realm of possibility that it might be up for debate. I know that they're already talking about that. I know that Trump is already backtracking on Article 5 in the North Atlantic Charter, which, I mean, the only time, let's also remember, the only time that Article 5 has ever been enacted, it was the United States requesting the help of its allies, and we were there for them. So this time, now we're seeing a complete turn away from that. America first is going to turn into America last.
Alone.
Iran is working on building relationships with a variety of countries. The BRICS are going to become, I would say by this time next year, the BRICS are going to be more or less on par geopolitically with the G7 in terms of international relations, as they gain more precedence, and as China starts to assert its moral authority. China is another factor. We haven't discussed that yet, but China also, let's understand, they have got assets and operations going on in the Persian Gulf. I know that they at least have 2 information resource ships that are busy soaking up a whole pile of intelligence from whatever everybody's doing there in the Persian Gulf and in the Red Sea. They also are building a tremendous amount of soft power around the world that the United States not only is walking away from, but has basically
apparently they were doing food drops in Gaza the other day.
Yes. So we're going to see, and now understand, China is looking at this from they do not want to engage in war, but a power on the rise is always vastly different in its use of force and its use of its powers than a power on decline. When you've got a declining empire, you get into periods of micromilitarism. United States is starting to do this. We saw this with the British and the French in the 1950s and the Suez Crisis, where you lash out recklessly and impulsively in order to regain past glory. China is now operating in a very prudent, very measured, very rational, and long-term way. So whether you like China or not, they are a country that, as a nation like Canada, we are going to have to learn how to do business with.
Okay. My last question on this thing about everything going on with Iran is that if somehow Iran and the United States should return to the negotiating table, Trump has been changing his language about the need for a signed agreement. Now it doesn't seem to be as important or as vital anymore. And he also rather inexplicably, and nobody knows where this has come from, has been talking about being okay with Iran, first of all, selling its oil in the first place, and with China, of all nations, buying it. Because he now wants Iran to be able to make some money so it can rebuild some stuff for the good people of Iran to make Iran great again or whatever, which again seems to me a lot of immediacy of now, because you're clearly not thinking this one through here. In your assessment, is he preparing the terrain for the domestic audience because he's now realizing that he's even more unlikely to actually get a deal than he was prior to the attacks? He's like that, the crow that was holding the piece of cheese or something like that, and somebody gets it to sing, and then he drops it, and it's like, oh well, no, not that. Sorry, the fox and the sour grapes, or the fox wants to get the grapes, and he goes, oh well, I didn't really want it anyway.
Okay, understand. Trump is living in the eternal now, so don't read a lot of strategy into what he does, except for what is happening at the same time that he's making that decision. Those are probably the parameters he's operating off of. That noise you heard early this morning in the wee small hours of a long, high-pitched keening noise, were all the staffers in Washington screaming at him suddenly making this other avant-garde change in policy. Okay, he's trying to do everything everywhere all at once, and all we're seeing is chaos and further weakening of the United States in terms of its ability to influence global policy. Iran and China have already developed some agreements here, have already had a lot of stuff in place. Him going along with this, I think, is more or less him trying to save face by saying, "Oh yeah, well, it was my idea. Yeah, it's cool. It's good that they're doing that because they need to do these things because it's flying in face of everything else." But we see that this incoherence in their policy is a fundamental part. Like if there's a consistent theme in the Trump administration, it's inconsistency in terms of their geopolitical outlook. Interestingly, also, and this is separate from this, but for the first time, I think globally, the non-oil-based power sources have exceeded oil-based power sources for energy use across the globe. We're getting into a point where the oil is well, we're past peak oil by far. So oil is still a very important international asset, but is becoming less important. Other countries like China are building up their alternative resources and everything like that, closing down countries and economies. I see that are leaning hard into oil, just like Danny the Potato Smith is doing out in Alberta. So we're starting to see that purification of energy use. But anyways, what's your final question?
Because I lied, I did have one more. Earlier during, because I didn't have this one written down, but it was something that you said that stuck in my mind, and I wanted to ask you about it. You mentioned that you did have some issues with the way that the Prime Minister was either framing or interpreting certain things. I'm not sure if it was which one it was exactly. Could you tell us more about that?
I think that the Canadian policy towards Israel is vastly too in favor of Israel.
Okay.
I honestly, and I'm, maybe people will hate me for this and call me anti-Semitic, but I don't mean it as anti-Semitic because I don't mean this as a religious statement. I'm talking about a country. Israel is a colonial settler state that is engaged in a genocide within Gaza. How it got there, why it's doing this is a very, very difficult, long history in question. I do not see it as in Canada's best interest, given our history with the same damn approach to our First Nations people, to be supporting Israel so resoundingly and so successfully. I see a lot of issues in Canada where the side of Israel is being seen as being the side of the angels, and if you're flying a Palestinian flag, then you must be anti-Semitic and out to destroy Israel. These are simplistic ways of viewing reality. Canada is a tremendously multifaceted country. We need to appreciate that. We need to accept that. We need to build that into our geopolitical analysis. We have as much responsibility to ensuring that Palestinian rights are looked after, that Palestinian lives are looked after, as we do Israeli lives.
Okay.
And that is something I'm not seeing going. I'm seeing a little bit. I think the Carney government I see as being a little too heavy on the Israeli side.
Okay. So the things like, for example, the statement that he made with France and the UK, where, a lot of people that were more on the pro-Israel side had a little gasp with that. Are you seeing some movement? Like, is it more movement that we saw towards the Palestinian side than we saw with Trudeau, but still not enough? Or is he going the other way?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're moving in the right direction, but I think we're doing it too slowly. But then again, I mean, he's the prime minister. I'm just a guy. You have to move things slowly when you're doing policy, and I get that. And you have to move the window slowly in order to ensure that the country keeps up with you, because you can't just be reckless about this.
Right.
I don't know. I just
an impatient optimist.
I teach Palestinian kids who've lost family in Gaza, so
Right.
it's personal for me.
Right. Yeah. I understand that too, because that's one of the things on the show too. Um, I had a wonderful conversation with one of the kits over the past couple of days about, how bold we are willing to go with our statements and stuff like that, and how cautious we are. Like, we tend to be way more cautious on this subject than many others because there are just so many other layers of history and all that kind of stuff. But also, we assume, because Canada is such a pluralistic country, that we have both people of Jewish faith and people who are Palestinian and people from all the various ethnic groups that are in the Middle East that could potentially be watching, right? And we want to be able to give information to all of them. So he has that as well to manage. If we're talking pure domestic politics, you don't want to create a situation here where you're feeling you're pitting one group of Canadians against another because we are so pluralistic.
And I think we have to be careful as well, domestically, of not creating false equivalencies or putting in unnecessary splits between people. Being being opposed to Israeli policy with respect to the genocide that they're conducting, and it is a genocide that they're conducting in Gaza, is not an act of anti-Semitism any more than any and I look at what we're doing now, and I'm seeing the same sort of psychological thoughts perhaps that Canadians might have had in what was it, 1937, 1939, the SS St. Louis, when we turned back the Jewish refugees back to Europe. Most of whom went into the ovens because, well, we didn't really want to deal with that, and that's kind of not nice, and we don't want that sort of stuff here. So I worry that we're so worried that we're so concerned about offending people that we're not willing to make a proper statement for human rights. I look at what's happening in Gaza. I mean, I've got some very limited experience with Rwanda and with former Yugoslav Republic and ethnic cleansing and things like that back in the 90s. This is evil. This is what's happening there, and I think that Canada needs to be firm. If we are not going to be hypocrites, if we're going to come to terms with our own genocidal past, we need to bear witness and be honest about our opposition to things like this.
Right. And I mean, it's not just but it's not just individuals saying it, right? There have been cases that have been brought to international courts.
Yeah.
Right. We have that ICJ ruling that, Israel has a duty to ensure that there is no incentive, or that nobody is providing that type of consentment to commit genocide. They didn't go so far as saying, I'm not sure if they went so far as saying that they did commit genocide, but that they're not doing what they need to do in order to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was the whole thing with regard to making sure that, the humanitarian aid gets through, and South Africa has got a case in front of the ICJ as well. I mean, the ICJ says that it's plausible in January that Israel has committed genocide in Canada. So, I mean, it's not in Canada, in Gaza, I mean. So, I mean, it's right. It's not just a question of somebody at home looking at it and saying, that's genocide. I mean, there has been evidence, and there are people that are knowledgeable, who study this, who work in this field, and they're saying, there's some issues here.
Understand. I'm actually even pulling my punches here when I'm talking about it this calmly, because this is equally as evil and abhorrent and as massive as anything that we've seen in the last in the last 150 years of human history. What is happening right there? So these are, and that being said, and I'm not a diplomat for obvious reasons, Canada does have to manage this carefully, because unless you are getting all sides to deal with the issue, if you come down pokey finger in the chest and you will do this and this and you're doing wrong, you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to end the problems, and you're not going to end the suffering. That being said, being too mealy-mouthed about it also will not end the problem. There's a sweet spot that diplomacy has to hit. I do not envy Carney his job. I do not envy anybody in the Canadian government dealing with this stuff. Their job and what they have to do. I mean, you have to deal with monsters in order to end violence, and it's disgusting, and it changes you.
That's a good note, and that's maybe a note that can also apply to how we're viewing the Prime Minister having invited Prime Minister Modi to Canada for the G7 as well.
Oh. Talk beats war.
Indeed.
The notion that okay, Modi's an asshole, so's Trump. So like, okay, trust me. I mean, like, you worked in politics. You understand this as well as I do. There's a certain personality type that goes into politics that always ensures that there's a bit of ego involved.
Yes.
So you're always going to get a lot of tension there. The diplomacy is where you're able to work your way through that in order to find some sort of a solution or common ground as quickly as possible for the best benefit possible. We don't have to always agree. We just don't have to kill each other.
That's some good advice. All right, Hugh, thank you so much for joining us today to help us give us more information on that. It's been extremely helpful for the people who are listening at home and can't see. Our good friend has an interesting. I guess I can say chapeau.
Brody hat.
It's not exactly a chapeau.
It's a Brody hat.
It's a Brody hat.
Made in Toronto, 1943.
With mesh too. So and has given us a fine salute. My friend, thank you so very much for joining us today, and for the kids and cubs, because you so love Hugh and you so respect his intelligence. When we come back from the weekend on Monday, you will get more history with Hugh, because we will be talking about recent Canadian decisions with regard to participation to rearm Europe and entering the SAFE program, what's just happened at NATO, and wanting to commit an extra $9.3 billion in this fiscal year to get ourselves to about 2.1%. And I know you've wanted his views and his perspective on that.
I want an aircraft carrier is what I want.
So you're going to get a double dose of Hugh, back-to-back Hugh on Friday to put one bookend to your weekend, and back with us on Monday for another bookend. It's a perfect weekend.
And also a shameless plug,
yes,
if you
please.
will. If anybody wants to check out my HughTube
I was
channel,
about to ask you that.
I'm starting to do some more. It takes a long time to download stuff off my phone, but I'm starting to do more analysis on a regular basis. Now that school is over, I got more time to do it, so that's my plan. So keep an eye on that too.
All right, and I am looking for your YouTube channel right now, so that way I can put it up in the chat. And that is definitely not you. The one that I saw. But yes, hopefully I will be able to fit before we log out with the complete show. And that way you kids will be able to copy the address and then go there and take a look. But my friend, thank you so much. And
Hello, mon cher. Je suis en K-Town ce soir. Samedi.
Je ne serai pas là, malheureusement. Yeah. So, unfortunately, I won't be here, but I'm going to be closer to your area. So at some
Okay.
point over the course of the weekend. So
Bell
we'll
Vegas
try to
then.
make some time to see each other then.
All
All
right.
right. All right, kits and
Cheers.
cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show and the True North Eager Beaver Interview Project. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really love it when you do. And it means the world to us when you share a little something, when you share our content as well. A little something of yourselves, of course, is what I mean there. So, kids and cubs, please, and if you are listening to us in a podcast form, right, and you have the opportunity to give us some stars and some reviews, please do that. We appreciate that. That helps us with the algorithm too. And to find us in podcast form, kids and cubs, well, you can do that thanks to the generous support of the Ray Girl. If you scan that QR code that just appeared, or if you're listening and go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words, you have there's a button there that allows you to subscribe. And when you do that, boom, the audio version of our show comes directly to your podcast feed. So for the days you can't join us on YouTube, well, you can still take us with you and still have all the information you need to be engaged and informed. Kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, and I'm sure you would very much like to do so because you are helpful sorts, then you must hear the beckoning and the call of Kits Elaine and Kits Cassie, who are asking you to take a trip on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page and smash with our buttons. It's fun. Like, share, and subscribe. Give them a little tickle. It makes us very happy when you do, and that too also helps us with the algorithm. If you would like to help us in yet another way, kits and cubs, as we are nearing the end of the month, and we have some bills to pay, maybe you are inclined because we've given you a decent month of entertainment and information and sometimes just some silliness and you would like to encourage us and enable us to bring you more of that. Well, that can be done very easily with a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund. Ooh, mm, yum, yum, yum. Because it's summer and it's hot. And, well, you have to do your little bit to keep your beaver moist. Nobody likes a dry beaver. So, kits and cubs, if you would like to help with that, a little donation to the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge goes a long, long way. Just a couple of coins helps get your favorite beaver a mug of hot chocolate or your favorite grizzly a cup of dark and bitter coffee. And that helps us. I mean, it's basically our staff. So it helps us produce and write and all the stuff that brings you this show. So if you're able, that would be wonderful. And we thank you for your support. Now, if you are doing so and you would like to do so by buying Canadian, making sure that your transaction is entirely Canadian and avoid the US CE Tech Pros, then truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is where you would send your donation. 100% Canadian transaction. And as a bonus, we get 100% of your donation. That email address as well allows you to write to us if you have ideas for shows, guests, would like to give us some comments. And kits and cubs, we appreciate them all. We read everyone and we love to hear from you. So truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is the email address to which you would send those. And we thank you very much. If you want to reach us through our socials, at True Eager on the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge and on the Jitter is where you can go. Also, Facebook, True North Eager Beaver, our original home. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, right down here in the comments section, leave us a little something. It means a lot to us when you do. And as we mentioned, right, we recently had some conversations with some kits. And we received some mail about our interviews with Bonnie, about our, and everything like that have helped us, make things better. We see your comments in the chat as well. We read them. So, and we factor it all in and we make adjustments along the way because, as we say, it is your show too. And you help us be better. So thank you very much for all of your input. Because democracy is something that you do, kits and cubs. Once again, I am going to remind you because it is Friday and for one of the campaigns, it will be the final day. But yes, the Red Cross campaigns to raise some money for our brothers and sisters in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba who have been affected by the wildfires. We would like your help with that. So if you are able to make a donation, you can make it to, you can send it by email to wecare@redcross.ca, or you can go to www.redcross.ca, and you can also call 1-800-418-1111, because today, when you're going to be watching this, is the 27th. It is the last day for matching donations for the Manitoba Wildfires Appeal. The government of Manitoba and government of Canada will each be throwing in $1 for every dollar you donate. I think up to, I think there was a limit, but I'm not sure in terms of off the top of my head what it was. But if you donate there, you get more bang for your buck. And today is the last day to do it. If you want to donate to the Wildfire Appeal from Saskatchewan, you have 3 more days to do that, including today. That one ends on June 29th. So please, if you are able to help your brothers and sisters, that would be, and your fellow Canadians, of course, that would be a wonderful thing. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. Said Kit Hugh had some information for us here, and hopefully some of the information, makes us think, oh boy, things can get really bad. But some of the other information allows us to arm ourselves and equip ourselves in order to deal with the onslaught of narratives that are coming our way. So hopefully my words of wisdom would be to take to heart a lot of the things that were said here, specifically about things that can be possible and things that can't be possible, and keeping in mind that various actors and players have different objectives when they're communicating with us, and make sure that you take the best and that you leave the rest, and that way hopefully your load will be a little lighter, and maybe you'll have a little less worry, even though we should all be concerned. Kids, it can be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Now, on the count of 3, 1, 2, not quite yet, I need you to say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. So, 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. Let me hear it. Oh, that's good stuff. Mm-hmm. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. And Kits and Cubs, just before we go, a little Easter egg, a little Wimbledon update for you. One of the 2 Canadian women still in the qualification draw has successfully advanced to the main draw of Wimbledon. Unfortunately, it is not Victoria Mboko, who got to the 3rd set in a 3-set match, but did lose. However, Carson Branstein, who we talked about not too long ago, I mean, we talked about her yesterday as well, but she was the person who had defeated number 18 in the world, Ludmila Samsonova, in her first actual WTA level tour match, won her 3 matches, taking out, I believe, French Open semifinalist Louise Poisson, who was also in the qualifying round here because her ranking wasn't at a level high enough to be admitted into the main draw at the time that they had to qualify for Wimbledon. So she got to put the qualifying draw instead, but she was the number 1 seed in the qualifying draw. And Carson Branstein got through her and then through Bianca Andreescu in the second round. and then in the third round through Raluca Serban of Cyprus to advance to her first ever main draw of a Grand Slam tournament. So yet another Canadian up-and-coming tennis player who's breaking through this year. It's been really fantastic to watch. The next gen has been really kicking it out of the park today, hitting it out of the park, I should say, this year. All right, kits and cubs, I am off for the weekend. Please have a wonderful time, and we will see you again on Monday with more Hugh. We'll have more Hugh for you. All right. Bye, kids and cubs. Oh, and welcome, Benjamin. It's so nice to have you as part of the DAMFAM. Amour et bisous.